We are finishing up just this 2-week series called Love Well, and it's all about what we stand for here at Grace, loving well. We believe that our God has loved us so well that then the natural next step is for us to love other people well and to love Him in the same way that He's loved us. Now, all that just sounds like, I don't know, fancy, nice little words until we actually put something behind it. And so this will be the second week we've talked about this. When God loves us, He's not just loving us and it's just this nice idea. He always does it in two ways. He always does it full of grace and humility and gentleness when He doesn't have to. He's God after all. But He also does it, in just raw truth. He just tells us how it is. And when both these things are combined in the right way, in that perfect way that God knows how to, well, then people are supernaturally transformed. We would commonly say that these people are blessed, or these people are anointed, or these people are something like that. When we accept God's grace and truth, it comes in the form of His love. And when we are loved, well, that starts to transform us into something just like Him. Just like the way He's loved us, we now can love other people. And we've been in the stories found in 1 Samuel, where the people of God are in this turmoil. They keep trying to fight other armies and other lands and other people without ever consulting God's presence, God's love, God's truth, and God's grace. They keep swinging into lies and they keep swinging into arrogance. And these things are the opposite of God's love. They're the opposite of God's grace and truth. There's a woman, Hannah, who is crying out to God for a son, and He hears her gracious and honest cries, and He grants her prayer for a son. On the other hand, there's the people of God who are doing the opposite. And so everything is in turmoil. The people of God are even asking for a king. They want a king to rule over them. God apparently does not seem like He's good enough to them, or at least that's what they're communicating. And so instead of God smiting them right off the bat, I think God sometimes knows that we have to learn things the hard way. We have to make mistakes, and then He will graciously and honestly help us carry ourselves on from whatever mistakes and whatever tragedy we let ourselves into. So He lets them pick a king. Saul, handsome, tall, good-looking, all these different things. He's the obvious candidate for a king. But the trouble is where the Israelites, God's people, they choose the guy who looks the part. They don't know what's really within. There's the problem. Saul is riddled with the same things that his people are riddled with. There is no grace, there is no truth, there is pride, and there is lies. And so inevitably, Saul gets caught up into a cycle of, what the text says are bitter wars. And so I should ask you this question now: are you caught up in bitter wars? Because the relationship between you and God is off kilter, it's incomplete, you're denying it. And so what happens when the thing that sustains us that we need, when we're cut off from it? Bitterness, we're poisoned, the way we're supposed to function, it's missing a key component, a key cog, a key piece that makes the whole thing function the way it's supposed to function. So in the aftermath of Saul failing as the king, that God's people told God, hey, this is who we need. God does not destroy the people. He doesn't, hey, I told you so. Instead, God welcomes an alternative. It's not a new king in the way that the people would expect it, right? Somebody maybe taller, more handsome than Saul. Instead, it's a small shepherd boy, somebody that everybody else would have overlooked. And while Saul is terrified of the the Philistines, and terrified of the Philistines' warrior Goliath, there's this young boy who comes up filled with courage and strength and boldness. And then he immediately says why he's filled with strength and courage and boldness to stand up against evil, to stand up against the things that are against God's love. He says, the same God who rescued me before is going to rescue me again. That's the unfailing grace of our God. That is the unfailing truth of our God, that when we allow His love to come into our lives, well, now we can love like He does. When we allow Him to speak into us rather than foreign kings or ourselves or other people and other things, now all of a sudden we are set on a trajectory that is like Him. It's unfailing. It's near perfect. We might fail, but what He instills us with will never fail. David takes down Goliath, this giant that represents, the opposite of grace, the opposite of truth. And instead of saying, look what I've done, he says, look what my God has done using me. I want to ask you that today. Is it time for you to stop the bitter wars and investing in that, right? Somebody goes against you with the opposite of grace. They're coming at you with pride and arrogance. And how do you defeat them? Well, you're gonna be even more prideful, even more arrogant to overcome them. Somebody doesn't come to you with truth, but instead comes to you with lies. How are you going to defeat them? You're going to bring even bigger lies and elevate yourself above. And that just continues the bitter wars. Or are you going to say, enough's enough? I need grace that transforms. I need truth that reveals what's really going on. I need love that I can't source myself, but only that God can bring. All you have to ask yourself is, will God help you be open to His grace? And will God reveal His truth? Because if we can say that we're open to those two things, well, now we're open to God's love, and that will transform everything. Ask yourself that question today, and immediately, right after that, see the ways in which giants come your way, and you cannot attack them with higher pride, higher arrogance, lies, and all these things, but instead can attack them with selfless, gracious, honest love.